The blue light emanating from the screen pierced my eyes, and the feel of the mechanical keyboard beneath my fingertips was cold and hard. I suddenly opened my eyes wide, panting for breath, cold sweat soaking through my back in an instant. There was no overwhelming online mob, no glaring punishment decision on the bulletin board, and no spit from classmates who had once been like brothers to me. In front of me was the familiar senior year dormitory, and the computer screen stayed on the hotel booking confirmation page. The time on it was clearly written, 7 days before the major exam. I had been reborn. Reborn to the eve of all the tragedy. In my previous life at this moment, I was the class's unanimously acknowledged good person, Claire. With the major exam approaching, the whole class complained about the dorm environment being poor and too distracting, making it impossible to study quietly. Class monitor Brad and vice monitor Sarah found me and, in that practiced, morally coercive tone, persuaded me, Claire, we're all classmates. You've saved up a bit from scholarships by living frugally. Why not help everyone by booking a row of suites at the 5-star all-inclusive hotel beside the exam venue? If we all do well, the whole class will be grateful to you. Driven by a ridiculous people-pleasing personality, I grit my teeth and emptied all of my accumulated scholarships and part-time income, and booked an entire floor of rooms at the star-rated hotel next to the exam venue a full week in advance, even including a full set of pre-exam dining services. But what did I gain in return? After I had fronted all the costs, Brad and Sarah privately told the classmates that the hotel was their sponsorship, and even used upgrading rooms as a pretext to secretly charge each person a large management fee. And on the night before the major exam, they quietly slipped into my room, stuffed an illegally obtained exam paper and cheating devices into my backpack, and reported me anonymously. When the police car and the invigilators burst in, Brad and Sarah stood up with righteous indignation and pointed at me. It's Claire. She's always been jealous of everyone's grades. Not only selling exam questions secretly, but also trying to drag the whole class down. Under their incitement, the whole class pointed fingers at me. I was disqualified from the exam, left with a permanent stain of moral corruption on my record, and ultimately collapsed in despair under the onslaught of a flood of denunciations. And Brad and Sarah, by taking my revision notes and the huge sum of money they had collected, smoothly got into prestigious universities, stepping over my corpse to begin their brilliant lives. Ding dong. The phone on the desk suddenly vibrated, breaking the silence. It was a message in the class group. Brad posted a voice message in the group, with an arrogant tone tinged with a hint of condescension. At everyone rest assured, Sarah and I are coordinating the housing arrangements before the exam, but you all know how hard it is to book a 5-star hotel near the exam venue, and the costs aren't low. Since some of you have won the top scholarship, it's time for you to step up and contribute for everyone. Next, Sarah quickly replied, attaching a cute sticker. That's right. Claire is the most enthusiastic one usually. She must have arranged everything for us already. Right? We're all waiting for your good news. Don't disappoint us. A chorus of agreement flooded the group, and the web of moral coercion crashed down once more. Claire, you took the scholarship. What's wrong with subsidizing a hotel? Exactly. If we don't do well on the exam, you can't bear the blame. I looked at the familiar names on the screen, and a cold smile curved at the corner of my mouth. In my previous life, reading these words, I only felt fear and anxiety, afraid of being ostracized by everyone, so I meekly obeyed their demands. But this time, everything was different. I reached out, gripped the mouse, and without a hint of hesitation, clicked that red button, cancel reservation. The system popped up a confirmation prompt. Are you sure you want to cancel the reservation? The funds will be refunded in full to your account. I decisively clicked confirm. Seeing the unsubscribe successful message on the page and the SMS notification of the refund to my bank card arriving instantly, I took a deep breath. That was my savings. Every penny I earned by working late nights part-time. How dare they squander it? After canceling the order, I didn't argue in the group chat, and I didn't leave the group. I opened the class group, and slowly typed a line to send. Everyone, rest assured, I've arranged the hotel for before the exam for everyone properly, so just focus on preparing for the test. When they saw my reply, the group cheered instantly. Brad and Sarah were the first to post praises in the group, but their words were all about taking credit for themselves. The night outside was heavy, like a thick inky blanket that couldn't be spread thin, and the dorm's fluorescent light hummed softly from time to time. I leaned back in my chair, coldly watching the endless scrolling group messages on my phone, a barely perceptible arc tugging at the corner of my mouth. After I sent back the line arranged, the class group instantly boiled over. Those classmates who usually wouldn't even spare me a glance were at this moment going wild in the group, sending all kinds of praise and grateful memes. Truly a Claire genius. So capable. This is our class's role model. Follow Claire and there'll be meat to eat. However, the chatter didn't last long, and the mood was quickly interrupted by a voice message from Brad. Everyone, quiet down first. Brad's voice carried his habitual, condescending sense of control. He deliberately deepened his tone, sounding incredibly authoritative. Although Claire took care of the booking, you all should be clearing your minds how hard it is to grab a 5-star hotel around the exams this quarter. How many connections Sarah and I pulled, how many doors we pressed, to secure this all-inclusive linked suite quota. Without the two of us coordinating in the middle, a single rich person couldn't possibly book this top-tier room. Then Sarah quickly jumped in, her voice on the recording coquettishly sweet, full of hypocritical concern. Yeah, Brad bro has run around for this. His shoes almost worn through. And this time the hotel offered the VIP exclusive channel, including a private study room and 24-hour private butler service. To ensure everyone's study quality, Brad and I decided that each person only needs to pay $500 for room upgrade and butler service. We'll collect this money centrally and coordinate with the hotel's senior manager. $500. 40 students in the whole class, which totals exactly $20,000. In my past life, I paid the full room fee, and Brad and Sarah did the same covertly by charging the classmates. They took the receipts I advanced, pretended to be proof of sponsorship, and then pocketed the huge sums. Back then I was endlessly fooled by them, afraid to utter a word of explanation, letting them trample on my back to build their wise leadership persona. And this time, watching them in the group sing-song, deftly harvesting the classmates' trust and money, I only found it ridiculously funny. Already transferred to Chief Brad. Thanks to Brad and Sarah. I've transferred too, thanks to the two class chiefs. The group's transfer screenshots began flooding the screen. Everyone vied to transfer money into Brad and Sarah's accounts, fearing that if they hesitated they would lose the privilege of this VIP suite. Sarah even privately messaged me, sending a message that looked like genuine concern. Claire, look at everyone's enthusiasm. But as the booking person, you mustn't say anything in the group chat. If people find out the room fee was fronted by you alone, it will weigh on them psychologically and affect the big exam, which would be bad. Brad and I will shoulder this pressure. We'll bear the fame. You just focus on your revision. Reading those lines, I almost laughed out loud. They'll bear the reputation? It's plainly them who are taking the profits, and they're setting me up to take the blame. I obediently replied, okay, Sarah, I'll listen to you guys. I absolutely won't say another word in the group. On the hotel side, everything is normal. You can rest easy. After receiving my confirmation, Sarah obviously dropped her guard completely, quickly sending me a so well-behaved sticker. And then she wouldn't reply anymore. She was probably sitting in front of the computer counting the ever-increasing numbers in her account, fantasizing about how to use this windfall to buy the luxury handbag she had long desired. I sneered and closed the chat, then opened my own bank account. The several tens of thousands of dollars refunded from the cancelled reservation had already settled safely into my card. I didn't stop there. I casually opened the hotel's official back-end system. In my past life as the booker, I held a high-privilege member account. After logging in with this account, I deliberately changed the lock status of the entire floor that had been reserved to the system has automatically released the room due to non-payment of the deposit on time. Next, I dialed the hotel front desk. Hello, Zunland St. Royal Hotel. The polite and professional voice of the front desk came through. Hello. My voice was calm as still water, with no ripple. I am a client who previously reserved the top all-inclusive suite. I'd like to remind you that due to personal reasons I have cancelled that order. If anyone asks about these rooms in my name or under the class group booking, please handle strictly according to hotel policy and do not reserve any priority for me. Okay, Miss Claire, the system has recorded your request. Currently, those rooms have been returned to the public booking pool. Have a nice day. After hanging up, I drew a long breath. Brad and Sarah were then reveling in their windfall, as if they had pulled off a miracle with nothing. They hadn't even checked the order status with the hotel once. In their subconscious, Claire, who was cowardly, insecure, and ingratiating, would never dare to play tricks on what she had promised. They were used to my submission. This habit would become the sharpest blade that pierced them. In the next few days, the dormitory atmosphere grew eerily tense. Brad and Sarah shone in class. Brad wore a brand new suit and boasted every day about how he had leveraged his connections to land this pre-exam hotel. Sarah wore the latest limited edition high heels, weaving among classmates and basking in everyone's compliments. Sarah, really, thank you so much this time. If it weren't for you and Brad, we wouldn't be staying in a 5-star hotel. A few girls gathered around Sarah, with faces full of envy. Sarah proudly lifted her chin, glancing sideways at me sitting quietly in the corner reading, her tone with a touch of contempt. Oh please, this is what we as class leaders should do. Unlike some people, who take so many scholarships but can't help at crucial moments, just hiding in the corner pretending to be superior. The surrounding classmates echoed with light-hearted smiles, which sounded extremely ironic to my ears. I lowered my head, and the pen in my hand raced across the draft paper, not even lifting my eyelids. How happy you are to laugh now. Your cries 2 days later will be even more miserable. To make this performance more convincing, I even walked to Brad's desk during a break, lowering my voice and feigning timidity and hesitation. Brad, class monitor, is the hotel really okay? Should I go check again? Brad didn't even bother to look at me. He waved his hand impatiently, as if shooing away a bothersome fly. What could be the problem? Claire, stop making trouble here, okay? I've already taken care of the money and the arrangements with Sarah. Spare me the useless worry. If you have time, you'd better memorize a few more problems. Otherwise, you'll do poorly on the exam and drag the class average down. A few classmates around also chimed in. Yeah, Claire, Brad said it's all good. You don't need to worry about it. I know. I lowered my head, putting on a look of being wronged and unwilling to argue, turning away silently. But the moment I turned, the cold smile at the corner of my mouth could no longer be hidden. I did give a warning. Even in front of everyone I reminded you, Brad. It was you who pushed open that last security door, pushing yourself and Sarah into an inescapable abyss together. The countdown to the major exam wore on, day by day, in the corner of the blackboard. Brad and Sarah were collecting money eagerly, even starting to post photos of outings at upscale restaurants in their social circle, with the caption, "With greater power comes greater responsibility. Thank you for your trust." The afternoon before the big exam, the sky was heavily overcast, and the sweltering air pressed down so hard it felt suffocating. The bus roared to a stop at the door of the city's most luxurious Sunland St. Joy hotel. Brad, in a brand-name suit, swaggered down first with a triumphant air, waving like a victorious general. Everyone, keep close. I've already spoken with the hotel's top brass. The entire top floor is booked in one block, with private study rooms and a personal butler all set. Sarah, in a refined dress and carrying a Chanel handbag, followed closely, a proud and sweet smile on her face, calling to the classmates, "Just hand your luggage to the attendants. Once we finish check-in, Brad and I will take you to experience the hotel's private executive lounge." The whole class cheered, looking at Brad and Sarah with admiration and flattery. And I, quietly carrying my lightweight suitcase, trailed at the very end, like an outsider detached from the bustling splendor. Sarah seemed to notice my silence and deliberately slowed her steps to walk beside me, soothing in a perfectly measured voice. "Claire, don't be discouraged. Even though you can't afford to have us stay with you, for the sake of the classmate relationship, Brad and I have saved you a regular room too. A person should know to be grateful. In a bit, don't forget to thank Brad." A few nearby classmates immediately shot contemptuous glances at me. Exactly. You can't pay your own way. You're just leeching off Brad's clout, they sneered. Usually so aloof, but at a crucial moment you're counting on others. I did not retort, only gave a slight smile and calmly replied, then I'll thank you in advance now, hoping everything goes smoothly later. Sarah snorted, treating me as if I were only bluffing, and lifted her chin, striding toward the front desk in her high heels. The hotel lobby was opulent and dazzling, with a huge crystal chandelier casting brilliant light. Brad swaggered to the front desk, nonchalantly flashing a bank card and the whole class's roster, slamming them onto the luxurious marble counter. I'm Brad. I reserved the entire top-floor penthouse suites for our entire class, all-inclusive service. Now please check us in. The front desk staff maintained a professional smile, typing quickly on the computer. However, as the keyboard clacked, the staff's facial expression gradually shifted from polite to puzzled, and then their brows furrowed slightly. Sir, may I ask if the reservation name is indeed Brad? The staff asked politely. Brad frowned, his tone impatient. I'm the class president. The reservation might be under our classmate Claire's name, or through some group discount channel. Check carefully. Don't delay our study sessions. The front desk re-entered my name Claire for search. After a moment, the staff looked up, offering an apologetic smile. Sorry, Mr. Brad and Miss Claire. The system shows that Miss Claire did indeed book a suite at our hotel a week ago, but 5 days ago that order was officially cancelled by the person who booked it, and the prepayment has been fully refunded. What? This sentence exploded like thunder in the hall. Brad's smile instantly froze on his face, his eyes nearly bulging out. What are you talking about? Cancelled? How could it be cancelled? Look again. Is there a system error? Sarah's face also changed drastically. She hurried forward, shouting sharply, No way! We paid! How could a 5-star hotel be so unprofessional? Call your manager. The front desk staff's expression cooled, and their tone remained polite but with a trace of distance. 2 of you. The system's unsubscribe records are very clear. The order was cancelled 5 days ago, and the property has been fully booked by other customers 4 days ago. Tonight all our hotel rooms are completely full. There are no vacancies. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop to a freezing point in an instant. The originally lively class suddenly exploded with uproar. Everyone looked at Brad and Sarah in disbelief, and the discussion swarmed. What happened? Didn't you say everything had been arranged? Each of us paid Brad $500 for upgrades. How could there be no rooms? Yeah, we already paid. Now you're telling us there are no rooms, and we have a big exam tomorrow. Where are we staying? Facing the class's questions and stares, Brad's forehead broke out in fine beads of sweat, his face pale as paper. Sarah's hands shook slightly as she looked at Brad in a state of panic, fear in her eyes. At that moment, Brad suddenly seemed to remember something, turning his head sharply and fixing red eyes on me at the very back of the crowd, wailing hysterically, It's Claire! It's you, right? A few days ago you said in the group chat everything has been arranged. You deliberately cancelled the rooms to trap us. All eyes converged on me. I stepped forward calmly, my face devoid of panic, innocent and confused. Brad, class monitor, what are you talking about? A few days ago I did ask you whether I should go confirm the rooms with the hotel, but you told me in front of the whole class that the charging and coordination affairs had been fully handled by you and Sarah, and told me to spare my useless worries and not cause trouble. I took out my phone and played the classroom recording on the spot. The arrogant and domineering voice of Brad echoed clearly in the hall. What's the problem? The charges and the coordination have been fully handled by Sarah and me. Stop worrying so much. The ironclad evidence left the air utterly silent. The classmates' gazes toward Brad and Sarah completely changed, filled with anger and suspicion. Fine. Brad, you didn't even coordinate with the hotel yourself. You were just after our money. Sarah, you were bragging about buying a new bag on social media a few days ago. Was it our registration fees you used? Refund. Refund us now. The exam is tomorrow. You're trying to ruin us. Facing the furious classmates, Sarah's face turned pale. and she hid behind Brad with a crying lisp. Brad clenched his teeth, his fists clenched, his body trembling slightly from extreme anger and despair. He looked at me, the hatred in his eyes almost crystallizing into something tangible. And I, merely standing under the fluorescent lights, cast a cold and mocking gaze at him. The commotion in the lobby nearly toppled the crystal chandelier. More than 40 anxious students, eager to study in a quiet environment before the exam, surrounded Brad and Sarah, their spit flying as if to drown them. "Refund the money! Return our $500! Where will we sleep tonight? Tomorrow is the big exam. If there's a mistake, can you two even pay for it?" Brad's temple veins stood out, cold sweat sliding down his cheeks. With $20,000 in private funds, he and Sarah had, in the past few days, spent the majority to maintain a high-end social persona, buying brand-name bags and reserving luxurious restaurants, and now they couldn't come up with the full amount to refund. If the matter blew up and reached the school, not only would they lose their class monitor positions, they might even face sanctions. Sarah, more frightened than anyone, her eyes reddened, clutched Brad's sleeve, and whispered with a trembling voice, "Brad, what do we do? We've spent almost all the money. We can't refund." Brad gritted his teeth, steeling himself, and shouted at the crowd, "Everyone, calm down. It's just a room, isn't it? We don't have a room at Respect Blue Saint. We'll switch to another hotel. Sarah and I will personally cover it for everyone. It won't affect your exams." However, during the big exam period, all the surrounding star-rated hotels were already booked. Brad had called several times, and the responses were all no rooms. Seeing the increasingly angry looks from the students, Brad and Sarah's legs started to tremble. Just when they were cornered, I stepped forward with a smile, pretending to be eager to help, lowering my voice to Brad. "Brad, I just happen to know a senior account manager at this hotel," he said. "There's actually a top-tier luxury presidential suite area reserved for foreign guests on the top floor, with enough rooms to accommodate the whole class and a separate study hall." Brad's eyes lit up, as if he'd grabbed a lifeboat. "Really? Take me there." I looked uneasy, hesitating as I spoke. "But because it's a temporary occupancy of high-spec foreign guest rooms, the price is very expensive. And to prevent students from damaging the high-end facilities, the hotel requires the reserver to sign an extremely strict temporary full indemnity agreement and to pay all the full amount of the deposit on the spot. If there is any breach or damage to facilities, the signer bears full legal responsibility." "Sign. I'll sign." By now Brad had been blinded by anger and panic. To save face and cover up the embezzlement, he didn't have time to think. Sarah, also eager to push things along, added, "Sign quickly, Brad. After tonight, after the exam tomorrow, it'll be fine." Under my guidance, Brad found the manager. He didn't even read the specific terms on the indemnity agreement, and with a trembling hand, he pulled out the entire savings card he had planned to use for buying a car and a house, swiping the full amount of several tens of thousands of dollars as a temporary full indemnity deposit and expensive room fee, and signed his name on the liability-heavy breach agreement. Watching Brad's distorted face as he swiped the savings, and his signature on the contract, I lowered my eyelids, concealing a cold glint that flashed in my eyes. They thought they'd bought redemption, but they didn't realize that they had just signed a contract to hell with their own hands. The moment they got the room key, Brad tried to regain his dignity, holding up the key and loudly telling the classmates, "See? I told you Sarah and I had a solution. Although we spent tens of thousands of dollars more, for everyone's future, we've done it." A portion of submissive students began to flatter again, and Sarah raised her arrogant chin again, giving me a fierce, glancing look. I watched their group stride into the elevator, their backs fading, a cold curve lifting the corner of my mouth. At 1:30 in the morning, the entire Zunlanshinjua hotel fell into deathly silence, with only the top-floor suite still emanating a hazy yellow light. Brad and Sarah sat in the private study lounge of the luxurious presidential suite. Although they had temporarily pacified the anger of their classmates with a huge stash of savings, the shadows in their hearts had not lifted at all. To secure an easy victory in the upcoming major exam, perhaps even to overpower me, They had long prepared one last backup plan. Because this was a temporarily occupied top-tier suite, the room's electrical system was extremely sensitive and fragile, and it was equipped with the city's premier fire safety and security sensors. Brad locked the door, drew the heavy blackout curtains, and pulled out several high-power signal jammers, miniature bone conduction earphones, and illegal pirated exam question receivers secretly bought through underground channels. To power these high-power devices, Brad paid no heed to the hotel's electrical safety warnings, forcefully plugging his own heavy power strip into the high-voltage line in the corner, and even secretly opened the wall outlet to pull hidden wires. Sarah sat nearby, sewing the tiny earphones into her ears with tweezers while anxiously urging, "Brad, hurry up!" The people in the underground trading group said they'll transmit the simulated questions at 2 in the morning. Has the receiver's power been set to the maximum? Brad, sweating profusely, connected the last wire, his eyes gleaming with fanaticism and greed. Relax. Once this high-power receiver is on, we can intercept signals from the neighboring examination hall. The first place in this major exam will definitely be ours. As for that Claire, just wait until after the test tomorrow and I'll deal with her. They had no idea that in the room next to them, I was already wearing headphones, watching the power fluctuation graph being transmitted in real time on the computer screen via a Bluetooth detector. In a previous life, they had used this cheating setup to memorize the questions before the exam, and then furtively stuff the spare device into my backpack, completing a one-stone two-birds trap. And in this life, I not only gave them no chance to frame me, but even before check-in, I had kindly warned hotel security top-floor tenants had brought in a large amount of high-power illegal electrical devices. 2:15 a.m. The high-power receiver was in full operation, its buzzing reverberating in the confined space. The lines were overheating due to overloading, and the plastic insulation skin gave off a sharp burnt smell. Zizz, bang! A crisp short-circuit crack burst out. Immediately, the top-floor electrical system collapsed. Thick smoke spread rapidly from the corner, and directly triggered the ceiling's extremely sensitive top-tier sprinkler system and fire alarm. The piercing alarm tore through the night, the ding-ding-ding. Cold water sprayed down like a downpour, instantly soaking Brad and Sarah. The cheating devices sparked and hissed in the water, utterly wrecked. "Ah, fire! Help!" Sarah screamed, stumbling to the floor, her name badge dress smeared with black smoke and sewage. Brad was terrified out of his wits, about to bolt outside, but the door outside was already a chaotic mess. The cold spray drenched all the sleeping classmates in the next room. Smoke filled the corridor, and the entire class ran out of their rooms in their pajamas, crying and swearing in a scene of chaos. What happened? How did it leak and catch fire? My study materials, my admission ticket are all soaked. Just as everyone panicked and tried to escape, the top floor door was violently kicked in. Dozens of hotel security guards, building managers, and police officers who had rushed to the scene faced the scene with grim expressions as they swept in. "Nobody move!" The leading security chief spoke firmly. "The room's electrical circuit has been secretly rewired, overloading and causing a spark." Who did this? All eyes instantly fixed on Brad and Sarah, who had just frantically escaped from the master bedroom, still tightly gripping the cheating receiver in their hands. The police's gaze sharpened. They stepped forward and directly snatched the device from Brad, carefully examining it. Their faces grew extraordinarily grave. A high-power illegal radio receiver? And wireless micro-cheating earphones? Are you conducting underground illegal cheating exams here? Once this was said, the onlookers' student crowd exploded in conversation. Cheating devices? Brad and the others actually using illegal cheating equipment in the room, even short-circuiting the circuit? My exam admission ticket and my revision notebook are all ruined by water. There's a big exam tomorrow. These two lunatics. They've ruined us. Outrage exploded in an instant as the classmates converged to question them. Sarah cried, shielding her head, while Brad's face turned ashen and he stammered to explain. "No, it's not like that. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. This belongs to Claire. Claire put it here." Brad frantically searched through the crowd for my figure, trying to pin the blame on me. I dressed neatly and walked calmly out from the fire exit, holding up the phone's recording screen with a cold gaze, and said to him, "Brad, Class monitor. You can eat heartily, but you must not talk nonsense. I have been staying in the standard room on the lower floors all evening, and the hotel's surveillance and front desk card records are crystal clear. As for this high-powered device, you personally brought it up here this afternoon in a black briefcase. The hotel lobby surveillance cameras captured it clearly. The security chief coolly produced the contract Brad had signed and slapped it onto his face. Mr. Brad, based on the contract you signed, you will bear full liability for breach of contract and compensate for all losses due to the use of high-power electrical equipment triggering a fire alert and damaging the hotel's top facilities. Now, please come with us to the police station for cooperation with the investigation. No, I won't go. I have a big exam tomorrow. I can't go. Brad wailed hysterically, but was forcefully held by two tall police officers on his left and right, cold handcuffs snapping shut around his wrists. Sarah tried to slip away but was halted by a female officer on the spot, who found a miniature earpiece and illegal exam question papers hidden in her pocket. In this crucial night before the big exam, the entire class's supplies were soaked and sealed, while Brad and Sarah, shunned by the whole class and with sirens blaring, were disgracefully dragged into the police car. The dawn broke through the clouds, and the glaring light showered the front of the examination building. There was only half an hour left before the first major exam began. The entire class gradually arrived at the exam hall, each face bearing the bluish-purple bags and fatigue from staying up all night. Last night's incident at the Zunland St. Sovereign Hotel had stolen their overnight rest, and many students' admission tickets and revision materials were soaked and ruined by the sprinkler system, leaving the scene full of complaints and wails. At this moment, a police car stopped not far from the exam hall under the shade of a tree. The police gates opened, and Brad and Sarah staggered out, escorted by two officers. After a full night of interrogation and evidence collection, the two had paid a hefty bail and were temporarily released to attend the exam, but they no longer bore their former splendor. Brad wore a wrinkled suit splashed with water, his face covered in grime, eyes wandering and fierce. Sarah's delicate makeup had long faded, her hair disheveled, eyes reddened and bloodshot, one heel missing from her high-heeled shoes, limping as she walked, as pathetic as possible. When the classmates saw them, they avoided them with expressions of disgust and contempt. Look, a cheating dog still dares to come to the exam. Last night they ruined everyone's sleep and soaked all the materials. Why don't they just crouch in jail and not come out? Facing the bone-chilling gossip, Brad gritted his teeth, lowered his head, and hurried toward the examination hall. Sarah, filled with resentment, fixed her gaze on me, standing at the entrance of the exam hall, neatly dressed, composed. To her, if I hadn't cancelled the reservations, they wouldn't have been charged privately. If I hadn't refused to cover the costs, they wouldn't have been forced to buy illegal devices. If I hadn't drawn the police, how could they have come to this? Claire. Sarah bit out my name, a hint of madness flashing in her eyes. Just before entering the exam room, Sarah deliberately slowed her pace, and in the moment we brushed past each other, she whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear. Do you think you've won, Claire? What about the police taking away the equipment last night? The real nuclear weapon has always been on me. Today, I will personally drag you down to hell. Seeing her nearly twisted face, I remained expressionless, even my eyes not wavering. In the previous life, Sarah was the same, exploiting minor flaws in the exam security to secretly throw a reduced print illegal exam paper and a rubber eraser with a tiny receiver under my feet during the exam, then loudly reporting me so I had no defense. And this time, I saw the small bulge hidden in her sleeve and the gaps of her underwear, and knew she was about to replay the same drama. Please, all candidates take their seats. Show your admit cards. The exam will begin soon. The invigilator's cold and stern voice echoed in the hall. All students returned to their positions, and the atmosphere instantly grew solemn. Brad sat in the corner to my left front, pale as a ghost, hands trembling. Sarah happened to be assigned to the seat behind and to my right. The papers were distributed, and the countdown began. I picked up my pen and, with a clear mind, swiftly filled out the answer sheet. In my second life, I had already thoroughly reviewed these questions. There was no need for any illegitimate shortcuts. Half an hour into the exam, the classroom was so quiet that only the rustle of papers could be heard. Suddenly, I felt a faint wind from behind, and a very small rubber eraser wrapped around a paper as thin as a cicada's wing quietly rolled to my foot. Next, Sarah, who sat behind me on the right, suddenly stood up with a sharp voice full of justice, breaking the dead silence of the exam. Report to the invigilator. I report. Claire is openly cheating in the exam room. There are illegally smuggled exam questions and answers under her feet. One stone stirs up 1,000 waves. The entire exam hall suspended their heads in shock. The proctor's face instantly darkened, and he stepped a few paces toward my seat. The malice and sly triumph on Sarah's face intertwined as she pointed at my feet and strode forward. Proctor, take a look. Right beside her feet. She planned to use these things last night, and I caught her today red-handed. Brad also snapped his head around in front, a gleam of ecstasy flashing in his eyes, and he shouted, "Yes, it's her. She was the one who planned to buy the equipment last night. She's a habitual cheater." Faced with this sudden accusation, everyone present thought I was doomed. Yet I didn't even glance at the eraser under my foot. I calmly lowered the pen I held, stood up slowly, and smiled at the furious Sarah. Proctor, my voice was calm and clear, echoing through the entire classroom. I request an immediate retrieval of the full panoramic high-frequency monitoring footage of the examination hall, and I request a thorough on-site search of the female invigilator as well. At the same time, for fairness, I also request an on-the-spot professional search of the accuser, Sarah. The proctor frowned and spoke coldly. Why? I turned to face Sarah, whose gaze was already wavering, and my tone suddenly grew ice-cold. Because just before entering the exam room, Sarah told me to my face that she hid the real cheating weapon on her person. And, if you all look carefully, you'll find that the eraser with the answers has a layer of extremely special perfume film on it. And that kind of perfume is used by only Sarah in the entire class. You're lying through your teeth. Sarah screamed in fright, her face turning pale. Whether I'm lying or telling the truth, a search will reveal it, I said with a smile, addressing the two female invigilators on the stage. Please make sure to check the inner lining of her underwear and the lining of the right sleeve cuff. There seem to be quite a few good things hidden there. The two invigilators immediately stepped forward, disregarding Sarah's frantic struggles and resistance, and escorted her to the temporary examination room beside the classroom. Only 3 minutes later, the door to the examination room opened. The female invigilators walked out looking grim, holding in their hands 3 pages of condensed exam questions smuggled from Sarah, a miniature wireless receiving chip, and 2 more perfume-covered erasers that looked exactly the same. Ironclad evidence. Smuggling illegal equipment, framing a fellow examinee, severely violating examination discipline. The chief invigilator stood up, furious. Cancel Sarah's qualification for all subjects. Hand her over to the judicial authorities. No, it's not like that. Brad, help me. Claire is framing me. Sarah cried like a madwoman and was dragged out by security. Her shoes had come off, and she looked as wretched as a stray dog. And Brad, who had been sitting in the front row, watched this scene, trembling violently all over. The pen in his hand fell to the ground and shattered. I calmly sat back down, picked up my pen. The final rung of the exam bell rang through the examination hall, crisp yet filled with a taste of destruction. I handed in my paper with a calm expression and walked out of the hall with a light step. Meanwhile, Brad, who had been sitting in the corner, was drenched in cold sweat across his back, slumped on the chair and unable to stand for a long time. Throughout this exam, he had almost blacked out while filling in the answer sheet, his mind full of Sarah's despairing and venomous screams as they were led away. As soon as we stepped out of the exam building, the atmosphere dropped to freezing point. The campus disciplinary inspection team, the exam affairs committee's seniors, and 4 uniformed police officers were already on high alert. The entire class swarmed to the building's exit, blocking it completely. When Brad, escorted by 2 security guards, trembled down the stairs, an onslaught of condemnation overwhelmed him. Brad, what did you do with the $20,000 in private funds you collected from us? You and Sarah illegally bought cheating equipment, and you even caused the hotel to short-circuit and catch fire, almost making our whole class unable to take the test. Pay it back. Give the school and all of us an explanation. Facing the faces of former classmates who once crowded around him now wanting to tear him apart, Brad's lips trembled with fear, stammering in defense. I didn't embezzle. The money was all paid to the hotel. It was Claire. Claire cancelled the booking. That's what caused all this. Hearing that he was still trying to cast blame on me, the entire scene erupted in a chorus of sneering ridicule. Do you think everyone is stupid? Claire already produced a recording. It's you who publicly declared that the charges and coordination were all handled by you alone, not allowing anyone else to intervene. Exactly. At the hotel yesterday, Claire kindly helped you contact the room, but you couldn't come up with the money to refund to the class, so you forced yourself to sign a compensation agreement. I stood in the crowd center, watching Brad loudly accused with a cold eye. This time, I would not give him any opportunity to defend himself. I took a thick stack of printed materials from my backpack and, in front of the school leaders, the police, and all the students, handed them to the police and the examination supervisors. Here are all the evidence of Brad and Sarah from the past week. My voice was crisp and powerful, resonating through the hall. First, their unauthorized collection of massive funds from 40 students under the name of hotel upgrade fees, transfer records and chat screenshots. Second, after Brad couldn't refund, he privately withheld some students' admission tickets and identification documents as coercion. Third, and most importantly, I pointed to the transaction records on the documents and the dark web communications. Speaking weightily, this is the complete set of proofs that they privately contacted underground cheating groups, purchased high-power illegal radio wave receiving equipment, and obtained exam answers. It even includes all the on-site photos and hotel security reports from last night at the Zunlan Hotel due to overloaded circuits that sparked electricity and triggered alarms. The chain of evidence was extremely complete, logically tight, without any loopholes. You've been secretly investigating us all along? Brad's eyes bulged, the color draining from his face, his finger pointing at me trembling like a sieve. He finally understood. From the very beginning, I wasn't the soft persimmon they could manipulate. I went along with canceling the booking, letting them collect money privately, watching them slip step by step, and even offering them a compensation agreement that looked like a ladder but was really a rope when they were at their wits' end. I watched every move with a cold eye, quietly collecting all their crimes to strike the final, deadly blow at this moment. The police, flipping through the heavy evidence in their hands, wore expressions of deep, ominous seriousness. Mr. Brad, the officer spoke sternly and directly produced gleaming handcuffs. You are suspected of organizing cheating in exams illegally, privately and illegally raising funds through fraud, illegally detaining others' legitimate documents, and deliberately endangering public safety. Please come with us. No! I'm the one being framed. Sarah! It's Sarah who's in charge. It has nothing to do with me. Brad wet his pants in fear, slumped on the ground, thrashing wildly and shouting. However, no one pitied him. The two police officers dragged Brad onto the police car like dragging a dead dog, while Brad and Sarah, who couldn't pay the enormous hotel compensation and were suspected of serious academic cheating and criminal offenses, had their backgrounds and ugly faces fully exposed in the sunlight at this moment. Watching the police car roar away, the whole class crowded around me, their eyes filled with regret and shame, bowing their heads to apologize to me one after another. I merely glanced at them lightly, without a word, and turned to walk down the steps. 3 days after the final exams, the school's official notice board and the campus internet homepage simultaneously displayed the highest-level red notice. The notice's words were piercingly sharp, shocking the entire campus. Decision on handling Brad and Sarah for serious violations of examination rules and illegal activities. After investigation, Brad and Sarah privately charged classmates exorbitant sums during the final exams, rigged high-power equipment and caused a safety incident, and brought illegal cheating devices into the examination room to frame others. The school has decided to permanently revoke their academic qualifications, expel them, and permanently record their illegal and disciplinary violations in their personal integrity files. The 4 big characters' permanent expulsion completely erased all their past efforts and, with a stroke of the pen, marked the end of their academic careers. However, this was only the first domino to fall. After learning that Brad and Sarah were expelled, More than 40 classmates who had been duped by them and paid the hotel upgrade fee were left in a panic. Each person had paid $500, totaling up to $20,000. Moreover, many students' exam admission tickets and study materials had been damaged by last night's hotel flood, leaving their performance in the exam in ruins, while their anger had nowhere to vent. Pay us back. Return our hard-earned money. Take our money to buy luxury bags and fine meals. And you caused us to fail the exam, these two scammers. The furious students united, bringing chat records and transfer proofs to the police to file additional charges, suing Brad and Sarah jointly for illegal fundraising and criminal deception. Because Brad had previously signed the grueling temporary full compensation pledge at the Zunlan Shinju Hotel, the hotel's legal team mercilessly sent a letter demanding Brad compensate for the extensive renovation costs caused by circuit damage, sprinkler system triggering, room losses, and brand reputation loss, totaling tens of thousands of dollars. To quell the hotel's lawsuits and the students' debt collection, Brad's parents had to exhaust the family's assets, selling everything they had intended for him to buy a house and a car. What was originally a comfortable middle-class family vanished overnight. Brad's father even suffered a stroke on the spot and was hospitalized due to the immense mental blow. Sarah's situation was even more tragic. Not only did she face debt collection from classmates, but she was also officially investigated by the police for publicly framing a classmate in the exam room and carrying illegal cheating devices. The social circles she once considered close friends began to delete her and block her as if she were a plague. The high-end handbags and designer clothes she once proud of were seized in accordance with the law to repay debts. In just a few days, the once dazzling and arrogant class monitor and deputy class monitor in the class had become despised as street-runner rats. I walk along the school paths. Sunlight filtering through the gaps in the leaves falls warm on me. Occasionally, passing classmates cast admiring and guilty looks at me, and some even stepped forward to apologize. I merely offer a polite smile. Desperate people who find themselves in a hopeless situation often erupt into deadly chaotic rages. On the 8th day after being formally expelled from school, facing tens of thousands of dollars in debt and criminal charges, Brad and Sarah finally had nowhere left to turn. They dared not go out, hiding in their rental apartment every day, dodging debt collectors. With no way out, they bet their last bit of stake on the overwhelming tide of online public opinion. At 11 p.m., an anonymous account titled "Victim of Exam Conspiracy" quickly went viral across major social platforms. The account posted a long, thousands of words sorrowful complaint, paired with a photo of Sarah crying wretchedly and a staged shot of Brad lying on the bed covered in wounds. In the text, all of their misdeeds are washed clean, while all the charges are pinned on me. We were just helping the whole class book hotels. Innocent students. But we're secretly framed by the scheming Claire who always has a deep mind. She resents our popularity, and deliberately ruined reservations right before the exams to force us to pay out of pocket. She even stashed illegal devices in our room and lied to the police. It was Claire's online bullying and meticulous plotting that ruined the futures of two young people. With emotionally charged copy that flips blame back and forth, the piece quickly drew enormous, unsuspecting bystanders to watch and become angry. Oh my gosh, this Claire is so cruel. How could she trap a classmate like this? Dox her. Recommend the school cancel Claire's exam results. Such morally depraved people don't deserve to study. For a time, the surging denunciations and harassing phone calls flooded my phone, and the comment sections of social accounts instantly collapsed. The next afternoon at 2 o'clock, Brad and Sarah even started a live sales-style clarification broadcast on a highly followed online platform. In the frame, Sarah cried convulsively, and Brad was wrapped in bandages, looking into the camera and tearfully accusing me of evil deeds, attempting to gain public sympathy and even launching a fundraiser to pay off their debts. Having watched the show for so long, it's my turn to bring them to justice. Just as their live room's viewer count exceeded 100,000 and the barrage of insults targeted at me, I directly used my real identity account to request to join the line and simultaneously started the broadcast in the highest quality online video. In front of the live audience, I wore a clean, sharp white shirt, remained calm, and held a piercing gaze. Brad, Sarah, since you two love acting online so much, let's settle all accounts clearly today, in front of over 100,000 viewers. Seeing my sudden appearance, a flicker of panic crossed Brad's eyes, but he quickly pretended to be calm and yelled, "Claire, you dare to show up? You ruined our lives, got us expelled, and dumped us with huge debts. You viper." I gave a cold sneer, skipping the chatter, and directly shared my screen in the live stream. "Everyone, please look at the first image." My clear voice rang in every corner. "This is the original transfer record of 40 classmates paying a premium upgrade fee of $500 each, collected privately in the class group a week before the exam, and the consumption flow showing how they embezzled public funds to dine at upscale restaurants and buy luxury handbags." Then I switched the screen. Second image. The official surveillance video and security report from Zunlan Xinju Hotel. The video clearly records how Brad took advantage of others' inattention to smuggle a black briefcase containing high-power illegal cheating devices into the room, and how he tampered with wall wiring to cause a fire and short circuit. Finally, I displayed the most devastating evidence. This is the playback of the exam center's full surveillance footage. The magnified tenfold view clearly shows that it was Sarah herself who fished an eraser with the answers from a gap in her underwear and threw it at my feet, intending to frame me. And the on-site of the illegal exam abridgment confiscation list with the police seal was found on her. Such rock-solid facts, like a hammer, slammed hard into the faces of tens of thousands of live viewers in the live stream room. The barrage of comments instantly reversed. The previously vilifying voices against me vanished without a trace, replaced by overwhelming anger and ridicule. Damn! It's a twist! These two people are actually cheating, stealing money, and framing others. They're basically movie stars. They took everyone's money for bags, and now they have the nerve to pretend to be pitiful to fundraise? Disgusting. Almost used as guns by them. Arrest them and sentence them. Brad and Sarah watched the evidence scrolling on the screen and the reversal of the barrage. The masks on their faces shattered in an instant, their complexions pale with no hint of color, their limbs frozen and trembling. "No, this is fake. You forged this." Sarah completely lost control, screaming at the camera as she banged the phone. I looked at the two people who had completely collapsed on the screen and delivered the final blow. "I have already synchronized and sent all the evidence to the judicial authorities and the anti-defamation legal team. Brad, Sarah, public opinion is not your tool to whitewash crimes. The courtroom is your final destination." With that, I decisively cut off the connection. The live clarifying press conference triggered a tsunami of public opinion, becoming the final straw that crushed Brad and Sarah. Factual fabrication, malicious defamation, and illegal online fundraising not only failed to restore any of their reputations, but also thoroughly provoked the judicial authorities and the public. The criminal case, which had been in the evidence collection phase, quickly moved into prosecution and trial due to the complete disclosure and solid evidence of the chain. A month later, the Intermediate People's Court of the city publicly pronounced the verdict in the city's sensational cheating and large-scale fraud during the final exam period due to illegal organization. In court, Brad wore gray detention-issued clothing, his face gaunt, his eyes deeply sunken, the former pride and arrogance long vanished. Sitting on the other side of the defendant's bench, Sarah looked pale and dazed. In just a month, she had shed 10 kilograms. Her whole person aging as if she were a street wanderer. I sat in the audience, upright and calm, watching them. The judge struck the gavel, and the stern voice resonated through the court. Defendant Brad, crime of illegally organizing cheating on exams and fraud. Multiple offenses. Sentenced to 4 years and 6 months in prison. Fined $50,000, and ordered to repay all illegal gains. Defendant Sarah, crime of illegally providing cheating devices and framing/defaming. Sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 3 years, and fined $20,000. As the gavel fell, Brad collapsed on the defendant's bench and let out a despairing howl. "For years, my 4 years. My life is over." He turned his head frenziedly toward me and shouted, "Claire, I was wrong. Save me. I don't want to go to jail." However, the cold handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists again, and a marshal mercilessly dragged him from the court like a dead dog. Sarah, although retaining her freedom and receiving a suspended sentence, faced an even heavier abyss ahead. Because she was permanently expelled from school and left with an extremely serious and publicly documented crime of academic cheating and false accusation, Every higher education institution in the city and even the entire country placed her on a permanent blacklist. No school would accept her. Moreover, the enormous compensation debt and legal fees bound her in a heavy financial shackle. Former friends and relatives cut off contact, and she could only drag herself along on the brink of social exclusion, utterly losing the chance to rebound. And in the second week after the verdict, the final exam results and admission outcomes were officially announced. At the very top of the school's bulletin board, my name, Claire, hung proudly in first place, the highest score the school had achieved in nearly 5 years. Following that, acceptances from the world's top universities and full-ride scholarship offers arrived as scheduled in my hands. The principal personally awarded me the honorary certificate, and the entire school staff and students gave me the most sincere applause and blessings. The September sun was hot and bright. A light breeze rustled through the treetops, bringing with it a soft, rustling sound. The opening ceremony of a top-tier university was held grandly in the Great Hall. The Gothic arches of the ceiling were magnificent and spectacular. Sunlight streaming through the brilliant stained glass windows spilled into the room, casting brilliant light and shadows. Thousands of the world's top students gathered together, their eyes sparkling with longing and yearning for the future. I wore a neat new student representative's outfit and sat quietly in the central front row. Next, please welcome this year's new student representative, Claire, who entered with the first place honor. To give a speech. The applause roared like a tide. Under the full attention of the audience, I slowly stood up and walked to the podium with a smile. Standing on this high stage where the lights gathered, overlooking the countless young and energetic faces below, my heart was incredibly calm. In these months of rebirth, moment after moment of scenes flashed through my mind. In my previous life, that weak, insecure self who was morally shackled, the self who, under Brad and Sarah's scheming, fell into ruin and cried in despair, seemed already like a distant, old dream. I personally severed the chains of my own weakness and completely trampled the evil people who sought to trample over my bones and blood to rise to power. Brad was serving a cold sentence in prison, facing a long and dark 4-year term. Sarah bore a heavy debt and a criminal record, barely surviving at the bottom of society, abandoned by all mainstream circles. They had once tried to destroy my future, but in the end, they banished themselves forever to the foul, muddy depths. And I walked out. I smiled and adjusted the microphone, and with a clear, piercing voice, I spoke through the entire hall. Dear teachers and fellow students, hello, I am Claire. It's a great honor to stand here. In the speech, I didn't mention past sufferings and grudges, only spoke of reverence for knowledge, commitment to fairness, and infinite exploration of the future. My voice was firm and powerful, every word representing the rebirth of a new life. On the stage and off, the applause grew warmer and more enthusiastic with each moment. The principal's eyes were filled with approval, and the professors beside him nodded and smiled. At the end of the speech, I bowed deeply and slowly walked down from the podium amid the sea of applause and cheers. Leaving the great hall, I was greeted by a golden blue sky. A gentle breeze arose, sweeping away the last traces of gloom. Those vicious traps, ridiculous calculations, and icy betrayals had long since been left far behind me. I lifted my head and stepped forward into the sunshine. The road ahead is long, the sun brilliant, and my glorious life has only just begun.